You know that feeling, right? Where the days just start to blur together, and then the months, and before you know it, whole years have just vanished. It's this weird, universal feeling that time is literally speeding up the older we get. So, in this explainer, we're going to figure out what is really going on.
I mean, Albert Einstein really hit the nail on the head here. Our experience of time isn't some fixed thing like a clock on the wall. Nope, it's totally subjective. It stretches and it shrinks depending on what we're doing, how we feel, and, as we're about to find out, how old we are.
Just think back for a second. Remember being a kid? Those summer vacations felt like an entire lifetime, didn't they? Just this endless ocean of days filled with new discoveries, maybe some boredom, and a ton of adventure. Every single day felt like its own separate thing.
And now, you blink and suddenly it's autumn again. It feels like we just put the holiday decorations away. We look back and entire years, even decades, kind of collapse into just a couple of fuzzy memories.
So, this is the big mystery we're diving into. What is actually happening in our minds and our bodies that creates this powerful illusion? And maybe more importantly, are we just stuck on this speeding train, or can we actually learn how to pump the brakes a little? Okay, so let's get into the first big piece of this puzzle, the time paradox. And this has nothing to do with physics or sci-fi, it's all about psychology. It's about the way we remember our lives. Turns out, it's all about perspective. One of the most powerful explanations is actually surprisingly simple. It's just math. Think about it. When you're 10 years old, a single year is a massive 10% of your entire life. But when you're 50, that same year, it's just a tiny 2% slice. Each new year is a smaller and smaller fraction of the life you've already lived, so it just feels less significant and shorter.
But it's not just the math, it's about the quality of that time. When we're kids, everything is new. Our brains are working overtime, processing tons of new information, and that creates really rich, detailed memories. But as adults, well, we get into routines. The same commute, the same job, the same chores. Our brain goes into autopilot because it's like, yeah, I've seen this before, no need to record it. So all that routine time gets compressed in our memory, and it feels like it just disappeared.
And get this isn't just some vague idea. Scientists have actually created mathematical models for it. What you're seeing here shows our subjective time, which is just a fancy way of saying how many new experiences we're logging. See how the curve just shoots up when we're young and everything is new? And then it starts to flatten out as our lives become more predictable. Our feeling of time seems to follow this exact same curve.
Okay, so that brings up a really fascinating question. Is this whole thing just a trick of our memory, a psychological quirk, or is there something physical actually changing deep inside our neural hardware?
And that leads us right into our next section, the brain's internal clock. We're moving from psychology to the physical brain itself, where we find an even deeper reason for why time seems to speed up.
So to really get this, we got to separate two different ideas. First, you've got clock time. That's the clock on the wall. 24 hours a day, it doesn't change. But then there's mind time, and that's your brain's personal version of time, which is built from the stream of mental images it's constantly processing.
And here's the absolute kicker. The speed at which your brain processes those mental images, it actually literally slows down as you get older. This is not just a feeling. It's a real physiological change. The hardware is aging.
Think of it like a video camera. A kid's brain is like it's recording in super slow motion, capturing tons of frames every second. That's why a minute can feel so long. But as we age, that frame rate drops. Our rapid eye movements, these things called saccades, they actually become less frequent. The neural pathways in our brain get longer and more complex, so in the same 60 seconds of clock time, we're perceiving fewer mental images. The result? It creates this powerful illusion that time itself is speeding by.
And there's one more player in this whole game, a chemical called dopamine. Now, you probably know dopamine is linked to feeling good, to reward and motivation, but it turns out it also acts like a regulator for the speed of our internal clock. This helps explain that old saying, time flies when you're having fun. When you're engaged and enjoying something, you get a dopamine hit, and that literally speeds up your internal clock. And on the flip side, we see that people with Parkinson's disease, who have a loss of dopamine, often have a really hard time perceiving time accurately. It's an incredible link between our brain chemistry and how we experience reality.
Okay, so this is where things get really, really exciting. If our sense of time isn't fixed, if it's this malleable, changeable thing, it means we're not just helpless bystanders. It means we might actually have some control. So the big question becomes, how?
So let's get practical.
let's talk about the actual science-backed things we can do to stretch our perception of time, to make our days feel richer and maybe just a little bit longer.
The solution really boils down to one word: novelty. We have to force our brains to get off of that autopilot setting. Now, this can be super simple, like just breaking your routine. Try a new route to work, cook something you've never made before, or practice mindfulness. Really focus on your senses right now. It forces your brain to pay attention. For a bigger kick, travel and explore. New places are like a supercharger for the brain. And finally, seek out adventure. An intense, new experience can pack so much information into 60 seconds that it feels like it lasted forever in your memory.
So, as we wrap things up here, let's just pull it all together with one final central idea.
Look, we can't actually add more hours to the day. That's impossible. But we can add more life to our hours. The goal isn't really to fight the clock. It's to fill the time we have with the kinds of rich, new, and mindful experiences that make it all feel full and meaningful.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. And it doesn't have to be some huge, life-changing thing. Just, what's one small new thing you can do this week to shake things up, to create a new memory that's going to make your time feel just a little bit richer?